The human soldier knelt in the mud beside the frozen creek, one hand clutching his bleeding side while the other fumbled with his empty water skin. And when he heard the footsteps behind him, he closed his eyes and waited for death to come quickly. Instead, a shadow fell across him, and a low, hesitant voice said something in a language he didn't understand. He turned his head slowly, vision blurred from blood loss, and saw her standing there with her hands held away from her sides to show she meant no harm. An orc woman. Young, maybe his age or close to it. Green skin that caught the pale winter sunlight, small tusks curving up from her lower jaw, dark hair pulled back in a practical braid. She wore rough spun clothing and carried a woven basket filled with winter herbs. Her amber eyes were wide with something that looked like concern. "Please," he managed in the common tongue, though his voice came out barely above a whisper. "Don't tell them where I am." She tilted her head, studying him with those strange golden eyes. Then she glanced back over her shoulder toward the forest, as if checking whether anyone had followed her. When she looked at him again, she seemed to make some kind of decision. She set down her basket and approached him slowly, the way someone might approach a wounded animal that could still bite. "You are hurt," she said in heavily accented common speech. Her voice was deeper than a human woman's, rougher but not unpleasant. "Arrow," he said, gesturing weakly to his side. 3 days ago, maybe 4, lost track." She knelt beside him without touching him yet, examining the wound with a critical eye. He could see her thinking, weighing something in her mind. Then she looked up at him, meeting his gaze directly. "My home is not far. I can help maybe, but you must walk. I cannot carry you." "Why would you help me?" The question came out before he could stop it. "Your people, my people. We're enemies." Something flickered across her face then, something that might have been pain or anger or both. "War is for chiefs and kings. I am neither. Can you walk or not?" He tried to stand and managed to get his legs under him, though the world tilted dangerously. She moved to his side and let him lean on her shoulder. She was strong, he realized, stronger than she looked. Together, they made their slow way through the sparse winter woods. Following a path only she seemed able to see, her home turned out to be a small dwelling built into the side of a hill, half cave and half constructed walls. Smoke rose from a hole in the roof. She helped him inside and eased him down onto a pile of furs near the fire. The space was surprisingly cozy, with dried herbs hanging from the ceiling and simple but well-made furnishings. She lived alone, he guessed. No signs of anyone else. She moved around the space with practiced efficiency, gathering supplies. Water in a clay pot, clean cloth, a knife that she heated in the fire. When she turned back to him with the blade in her hand, she must have seen something in his face because she stopped. "I must cut away the cloth to see the wound properly," she explained. "I will not hurt you more than necessary." He nodded and closed his eyes, too tired to do anything else. Her hands were surprisingly gentle as she cut away his ruined shirt and examined the wound. He heard her make a soft sound, not quite a sigh. "The arrow is gone, but the wound is bad, infected. You should have sought help sooner." "Wasn't exactly near a friendly healer," he said through gritted teeth. She said nothing to that, just began the painful work of cleaning the wound. He tried not to cry out, tried to stay still, but eventually the pain became too much and he felt consciousness slipping away. The last thing he remembered was her voice, low and steady, saying something that might have been "Sleep now. You are safe here." When he woke again, it was dark outside and the fire had burned down to coals. His side ached, but the sharp, burning pain was gone. He was covered with a thick fur blanket. The orc woman sat across the fire from him, mending something by the dim light. She noticed him stir and looked up. "You have been asleep for many hours. This is good. Your body needs rest to heal." He tried to sit up and managed it with some effort. She rose and brought him a cup of water, which he drank gratefully. Then she offered him a bowl of something that smelled savory and warm. Stew, he realized. Meat and vegetables in a rich broth. Thank you, he said, accepting the bowl. He was so hungry he nearly forgot his manners and just gulped it down. She watched him eat with an expression he couldn't quite read. "What is your name?" she asked after a while. "Roland," he said. "Roland Norris." "I was a scout for the Eastern Garrison." "Roland," she repeated as if testing how it felt in her mouth. "I am called Karga. Thank you, Karga, for helping me, for not turning me over to whoever." She looked away then, her jaw tight. "There is no one to turn you over to. My clan cast me out 2 seasons ago. I live alone now." The bitterness in her voice was unmistakable. He wanted to ask why, but sensed it wasn't the right time. Instead, he finished his stew in silence and handed back the bowl. She took it and turned away to clean it. "Why did you help me?" he asked again, more gently this time. Her back was to him, but he saw her shoulders tense. For a long moment she didn't answer. Then, without turning around, she said, "Because I know what it is to be alone and hurt and have nowhere to go. Because I could help, and so I did. It does not need to be more complicated than that." He thought about that while she busied herself with small tasks around the dwelling. Eventually, exhaustion pulled him back under and he slept again, deeper this time, without dreams. The next days fell into a pattern. He was too weak to do much besides sleep and eat and let his body heal. Karga tended to his wound twice a day, changing the dressings and applying salves she made from the herbs she gathered. She was a skilled healer, he realized. The infection receded and the wound began to close properly. She cooked simple but nourishing meals and made sure he drank plenty of water. They spoke little at first, just small necessary exchanges. But as he grew stronger, curiosity got the better of his caution. He asked her about the herbs she used, and she explained their properties. He asked about the land around her home, and she described the forest and creek and distant hills. Slowly, carefully, they began to learn each other. He discovered that she had been a healer for her clan before they exiled her. That she knew the names of every plant in the forest and which ones could cure and which could kill. That she had a dry sense of humor that caught him off guard. That she sang sometimes while she worked, low, wordless melodies that made something in his chest ache. She learned that he had been a farmer's son before the war. That he had 3 younger sisters he worried about constantly. That he could whittle small figures from wood scraps, and that he missed the smell of fresh bread more than almost anything. That he had volunteered for scouting duty because he was good at moving quietly through wild places. One evening, about a week after she had found him, he was finally well enough to sit up properly and help with small tasks. She had brought in firewood and he stacked it for her, moving slowly to avoid pulling at his wound. When he finished, she looked at the neat stack and then at him with something that might have been approval. "You are healing well," she said. "Soon you will be strong enough to travel." The words hit him harder than they should have. Of course he would leave eventually. He had to. But the thought of going back out into the cold, alone, not knowing where to go or who might still be hunting him, it made his chest tight. "I suppose so," he said, trying to keep his voice neutral. She stirred the fire, not looking at him. "Where will you go?" "I don't know. My garrison was overrun. I don't know who survived. Going back to my family's farm would just bring trouble to them. The war is still going. They would make me fight again." "And you do not want to fight?" It wasn't a question, but he answered anyway. "No. I'm tired of it. Tired of being afraid all the time. Tired of killing people I don't even know for reasons I don't fully understand." He paused, then added carefully, "Your people and mine have been at war for as long as I can remember. But sitting here with you, I keep wondering what it was all for." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said softly, I was exiled because I refused to poison a human village's well. The elders said it was necessary, a strategic strike. I said it was murder of innocents. They said I was weak. A traitor to my people. They cast me out and told me if I returned they would kill me. Her voice was steady, but he could hear the pain underneath it. So I came here, to the borderlands where neither humans nor orcs hold territory firmly, and I have been alone since then. Roland felt something crack open in his chest. "I'm sorry," he said, and meant it completely. "You did the right thing, the brave thing. They were wrong to punish you for it." She looked at him then, really looked at him, and he saw surprise in her amber eyes. As if she hadn't expected him to understand, as if she had thought he might judge her differently. "Thank you," she said quietly. Not many would say so. They sat in comfortable silence after that, watching the fire burn down. Roland realized with a strange clarity that he didn't want to leave. That these past days, despite the pain and uncertainty, had been some of the most peaceful of his life. Here in this small dwelling with this orc woman who had saved his life for no reason except that it was right, he felt safer than he had in years. But he didn't say any of that. Not yet. It was too soon, too strange. So instead he just helped her prepare the evening meal and tried not to think about the future. The weather turned colder and snow began to fall in earnest. Roland's wound healed to a pink scar and his strength returned. He began to help more around the home, chopping wood and hauling water and repairing things that needed fixing. Karga seemed surprised at first, but she accepted his help without comment. They developed an easy rhythm of shared work. One afternoon, while she was out gathering herbs, he decided to do something about the weak spot in the roof where snow was getting in. He found tools and materials and set about patching it. When she returned and saw what he had done, she stopped in the doorway and stared. "You did not have to do that," she said. "I know, I wanted to. You have done so much for me, it feels good to give something back." She set down her basket and moved to stand beneath the repair, looking up at it critically. Then she nodded. "It is good work, strong. It will hold through the winter." He felt absurdly pleased by her approval. Over the following days he found other projects. He reinforced the doorframe. He built a better shelf for her herb stores. He carved her a new stirring spoon when the old one cracked. Small things, but each one seemed to matter to her. They talked more as the days grew shorter. Real conversations that stretched late into the night. She told him about growing up in her clan, about the traditions and songs and stories of her people. He told her about harvest festivals and his sister's laughter, and the way morning mist looked over the fields back home. They argued sometimes too, about small things, but even the arguments felt good, felt real. One night she was teaching him words in her language and he was teaching her better common speech. They were laughing at his terrible pronunciation when suddenly she stopped mid-word and just looked at him. The laughter faded from her face, replaced by something more complicated. "What?" he asked. "Did I say it that badly?" "No," she said slowly. "I was just thinking. This is strange, all of this, you being here, us talking like this. If someone had told me 2 moons ago that I would share my home with a human, I would have thought they were mad." "Strange," he agreed, "but not bad." "No," she said softly, "not bad." The moment stretched between them, heavy with things unsaid. Roland felt his heart beat faster. He wanted to say something, wanted to tell her that he had never felt this comfortable with anyone, that he looked forward to seeing her face every morning, that the thought of leaving made him feel hollow inside. But the words stuck in his throat. It was too much, too soon. She was an orc, and he was human, and the world would never accept what he was beginning to feel. So instead he just smiled and said, "Teach me more words. I want to be able to say thank you properly in your language." Something flickered across her face, disappointment maybe, but she nodded and returned to the lesson. The moment passed, but Roland lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, thinking about amber eyes and strong, capable hands and a voice that made him feel safe. Winter deepened. The snow piled high around the dwelling, and they were forced to stay inside more often. The close quarters should have been uncomfortable, but instead Roland found himself cherishing every shared moment. The way Karga hummed while she cooked. The way she tilted her head when she was thinking. The way she sometimes forgot herself and smiled fully, showing her small tusks before remembering to hide them again. That bothered him more than he wanted to admit. The way she made herself smaller, quieter, less visible. As if she was afraid of taking up too much space even in her own home. One evening he finally said something about it. She was preparing vegetables for stew and had turned away when she laughed at something he said, hiding her face. "Why do you do that?" he asked. "Do what? Hide. Turn away when you smile or laugh. You do it all the time." Her hand stilled on the knife. She didn't look at him. "It is easier. Humans do not like to see orc faces. It frightens them or disgusts them. I learned long ago to be careful." Roland felt anger rise in his chest, hot and righteous. "That's not fair to you. You shouldn't have to hide who you are, especially not in your own home. It is simply how things are. It doesn't have to be." He stood up and moved closer, though he was careful not to crowd her. "Karga, look at me, please." Slowly, reluctantly, she turned. Her expression was guarded, cautious. He met her eyes and held them. "You are not frightening or disgusting. You are." He struggled to find the right words. "You are kind and strong and clever. You saved my life. You have shared your home with me. You laugh at my terrible jokes and teach me your language and make the best stew I have ever tasted. And when you smile." He took a breath. "When you smile, really smile, it is the best part of my day, every single day. So please don't hide it, not from me." She stared at him, her amber eyes wide and disbelieving. Her mouth opened slightly as if she wanted to say something, but no words came. He could see her struggling with whether to believe him. "You are just being kind," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "You feel obligated because I helped you." "No." He shook his head firmly. "I am being honest. Maybe more honest than I should be, but I cannot keep pretending I do not see you, really see you. Roland." She said his name like a question, like a plea. "You do not understand what you are saying." "I think I do." "No." She turned away again, her shoulders tense. "You are human and I am orc. We are not meant to. People like us do not." She made a frustrated sound. "This cannot be." "Why not?" "Because the world does not allow it. Because your people hate mine and mine hate yours. Because I am already an exile and you would become one too. Because it is impossible and foolish and—" She stopped, her voice breaking. "Because no one has ever looked at me the way you do, and I do not know what to do with it." Roland's heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. He moved closer, close enough that he could have reached out and touched her if he dared. "What way do I look at you?" She was silent for a long moment. Then, so quietly he almost missed it, she said, "Like I am not a monster." The words hit him like a physical blow. He thought about her hiding her smiles, making herself small, living alone in the wilderness because her own people had rejected her. All because she had chosen mercy over hate. And still she thought of herself as a monster. "You are not a monster," he said, and his voice came out rough with emotion. "You are the furthest thing from a monster I have ever known. You are good and decent and beautiful, and anyone who cannot see that is a fool." She spun around to face him then, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Beautiful," she repeated, and the words sounded bitter in her mouth. "Do not say what you do not mean. I know what I am. I have seen how humans look at me in the few times I have gone to the trading post. Fear and disgust and hate, never anything else." "I mean it," Roland said, stepping closer still. "You are beautiful. Your strength and your kindness, and yes, even your face. The way your eyes catch the firelight. The way you move like you are part of the forest itself. The way your voice sounds when you sing those old songs. All of it. You are beautiful." A tear slipped down her green cheek and she shook her head, tusks catching the light. "No one means that. Not really. You are confused or grateful or lonely, but you do not mean that." "I do," he said, and reached out slowly to brush the tear away with his thumb. She froze at the contact, her breath catching. "I mean every word. And I am terrified because I know you are right. This is impossible and foolish and the world will not accept it. But I cannot stop feeling what I feel. I cannot stop seeing you. I cannot stop wanting." He stopped, realizing he was about to cross a line he could never uncross. "Wanting what?" she whispered. He took a shaking breath. "Wanting to stay here with you, not because I have nowhere else to go, but because there is nowhere else I want to be." She closed her eyes and more tears fell. "You do not know what you are asking, what you would be giving up." "I know exactly what I am asking. I am asking if maybe, possibly, you might feel even a fraction of what I feel. Because if you do, then I do not care about the rest. I do not care what anyone else thinks. I just care about this. About you." For a long moment she did not move, did not speak. Roland stood there with his heart in his throat, terrified he had ruined everything. Then slowly, tentatively, she opened her eyes and looked at him. Really looked at him, with all her walls down and her heart visible in her face. "I do," she breathed. "Feel the same. I have tried not to. Tried to tell myself it was only loneliness or gratitude, but I cannot lie anymore. I care for you, Roland Norris, more than is wise, more than is safe, and I am so afraid." He let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. "So am I. But I think we can be afraid together." She laughed then, watery and raw, and it was the most beautiful sound he had ever heard. "This is madness." "Probably," he agreed. Then, moving very slowly to give her every chance to pull away, he leaned in and rested his forehead against hers. She made a small sound, almost a sob, and her hands came up to grip his arms. They stood like that for a long time, just breathing together, letting the truth of what they felt settle between them. Outside the wind howled and snow fell, but inside they were warm and safe and together. Finally Karga pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. "If you stay," she said carefully, "it will not be easy. We will face hate and rejection from both our peoples. We will be alone." "We will have each other," Roland said. "That is enough for me. Is it enough for you?" She searched his face as if looking for any hint of doubt or deception. Whatever she found there must have satisfied her because slowly, hesitantly, she nodded. "Yes, it is enough." He smiled then, wide and genuine, and after a moment she smiled back, no longer hiding her tusks. And then, because it felt like the most natural thing in the world, he kissed her. It was tentative at first, both of them uncertain. Her tusks made the angle different but not difficult. She tasted like the mint tea she favored, and she was warm and solid in his arms. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard, foreheads pressed together, smiling like fools. "Beautiful," he whispered again, and this time she did not argue. The rest of the winter passed in a blur of quiet happiness. They were more open with each other now, no longer carefully maintaining distance. They held hands while they worked. They slept curled together under the firs, sharing warmth. They kissed whenever the mood struck, which was often. They talked about everything and nothing, learning all the small details of each other. Roland learned that Karga loved the first snow of the season and hated the taste of dried fish. That she had always wanted to learn to read but had never had the chance. That her mother had been killed in a raid when she was young, and she still missed her fiercely. That she was afraid of thunder but would never admit it to anyone but him. Karga learned that Roland could not carry a tune to save his life but loved music anyway. That he had a talent for fixing broken things. That he blamed himself for not being able to save more of his fellow soldiers when their garrison fell. That he had terrible nightmares sometimes, and the only thing that helped was her arms around him. They fit together like pieces of a puzzle, complementing each other's strengths and weaknesses. She taught him to identify healing herbs and track animals through the snow. He taught her to raid, painstakingly working through the few books she had traded for over the years. They cooked together, worked together, laughed together. They built a life, but the outside world did not forget them entirely. One day in late winter, Karga returned from checking her snare lines with a troubled expression. Roland was inside preparing midday meal and he looked up when she entered. "What is wrong?" "There are tracks near the eastern border of our territory. Human soldiers, I think. A patrol. They have not come this far before." Roland felt cold dread settle in his stomach. "How many?" "4, maybe 5. They are moving south, but they could circle back." "And if they find this place?" She did not need to finish the sentence. They both knew what would happen if soldiers found a deserter living with an orc. Best case, they would drag Roland back to face court-martial. Worst case, they would kill them both on sight. "We should prepare," Roland said, forcing himself to stay calm. "Make sure we have supplies ready in case we need to leave quickly, and I should stay out of sight if anyone comes near." Karga nodded, but she looked unhappy. "I do not want to run again. I am tired of running." He crossed to her and pulled her into his arms. "I know, but we do what we must to survive. We will face this together, whatever happens." She held him tightly. "I do not want to lose you. You will not. I promise." It was a promise he hoped he could keep. They spent the next days in tense alertness, watching for any sign of the patrol. Karga ranged farther than usual, checking for tracks and signs of human presence. Roland made sure their emergency packs were ready, and that he knew the fastest escape routes through the forest. But the patrol never came. Either they had moved on or they had never been heading their way to begin with. Slowly the tension eased and life returned to normal. Still, it had shaken them both. They had been living in a bubble, pretending the outside world did not exist. Now they were reminded that safety was fragile and temporary. "We should think about moving," Karga said one evening, "deeper into the wilderness, somewhere truly remote where no one will find us." Roland considered it. Part of him wanted to agree, to find some hidden valley where they could live undisturbed. But another part balked at the idea of spending the rest of their lives running and hiding. "Or," he said slowly, "we could stay and defend what we have built here. Make this place truly ours." "We are not doing anything wrong, Karga. We are just two people trying to live in peace. We should not have to hide." "The world does not care about should or fair," she said, but there was hope in her voice. "You truly want to stay, even knowing the risk. This is our home now." "I do not want to give it up without a fight." He took her hand. "But we will do whatever you think is best. If you want to move, we move. We are in this together." She squeezed his hand, her amber eyes warm. "Together," she agreed. "We stay then, and we make this place strong enough to defend." So they did. As winter gave way to early spring, they reinforced their home. Roland built a better door with a strong bar. They cleared sight lines around the dwelling so no one could approach unseen. They established a warning system, simple bells on strings at the most likely approaches. They practiced what they would do if someone hostile came, planning escape routes and hiding places. It felt good to take action, to be prepared rather than helpless. And as the weather warmed and the forest came back to life, Roland began to believe they might actually have a future here. Spring brought new challenges and new joys. The garden plot Karga had maintained came back to life, and Roland helped her expand it, his farming knowledge finally useful again. They planted vegetables and herbs, working side by side in the warm sun. She showed him where wild edibles grew in the forest, and he showed her better techniques for crop rotation and soil management. Together, they built something neither could have managed alone. One afternoon, they were working in the garden when Karga suddenly stopped and straightened, staring at something in the distance. Roland followed her gaze and saw smoke rising from beyond the ridge to the south. "That is near the old trading post," Karga said, frowning. "Too much smoke." "Something is wrong." Roland felt torn. Part of him said it was not their problem, that they should stay hidden and safe. But another part, the part that had made him volunteer as a scout to help protect people, could not ignore the sight. "We should check it out," he said. "If people are in trouble. It could be a trap, it could be dangerous. I know, but we have to try. We do not have to reveal ourselves, just see if there is anything we can do." Karga looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "We go together, and carefully." They armed themselves, Karga with her hunting bow and Roland with a long knife and a staff he had carved. They moved through the forest quietly, using all their combined skills to stay hidden. As they got closer, they heard sounds, voices shouting, the crackle of flames, the clash of weapons. They crept to the edge of the tree line and looked down at the trading post. It was under attack, not by an army but by bandits, a ragged group of humans looting and burning. The few people who lived at the post were trying to defend it, but they were outnumbered and outmatched. As Roland watched, an older man fell to a bandit's sword and did not get up. "We have to help them," he said, already moving. "Roland, wait," Karga hissed, grabbing his arm. "There are too many. We cannot fight them all." "We do not have to fight them all, we just have to even the odds." He looked at her, his eyes intense. "You said you were exiled for refusing to poison innocents. These are innocents down there dying. Are we going to stand here and do nothing?" She held his gaze, and he saw the moment she made her decision. "We do this smart. You circle around and come from the west. Make noise, make them think there is a larger force. I will provide cover from here with my bow. We create chaos and hopefully they will break and run." It was a solid plan. Roland nodded and moved off through the trees, circling around to the western edge of the clearing. He waited until he heard the distinctive whistle of Karga's signal. Then he burst from the trees, roaring at the top of his lungs and banging his staff against a tree to make as much noise as possible. The effect was immediate. The bandits spun around, confused and alarmed. One of them took an arrow to the shoulder, then another. They could not see where the shots were coming from. Roland continued his charge, still making noise, and the defenders of the post rallied, pressing their advantage. It was over quickly. The bandits, faced with unexpected resistance and unseen archers, broke and fled. They grabbed what they could and scattered into the forest on the far side of the clearing. The defenders did not pursue. They were too busy dealing with fires and wounded. Roland emerged fully into the clearing, breathing hard. The survivors turned to him warily, weapons still drawn. He raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "Are you all right?" he called. "We saw the smoke and came to help." An older woman, blood on her face but standing strong, stepped forward. "We?" she asked suspiciously. "Who else is with you?" Roland hesitated. He could lie, could pretend it was just him, but Karga deserved better than to be hidden like a shameful secret. He had told her she was not a monster. Time to prove he meant it. "My companion is still in the tree line. She is shy of strangers, but she will come out if you give your word that you mean no harm." The woman narrowed her eyes. "She? What kind of woman hides in the trees with a bow?" "The kind who has good reason to be cautious around humans," Roland said carefully. "But also the kind who just helped save your lives. Will you give your word or not?" The woman studied him for a long moment, then slowly nodded. "You have my word. No harm will come to your companion here." Roland turned toward the trees and made a gesture. For a moment nothing happened. Then Karga emerged from the shadows, bow still in hand, moving with careful grace. The reaction was immediate. Several of the humans gasped. One man reached for his weapon before the older woman snapped at him to stop. "An orc," someone breathed. "Yes," Roland said firmly, moving to stand beside Karga. "An orc who chose to help you. An orc who is a better healer than anyone I have ever met. An orc who is my friend and my—" He paused, then said the word anyway. "My love." The silence that followed was deafening. Karga stood beside him, chin raised, refusing to show fear even though he could feel her trembling slightly. The humans stared at them with expressions ranging from shock to disgust to confusion. Finally, the older woman spoke. "You are serious. You are truly with this orc girl." "I am," Roland said. "And before you pass judgment, know that she has shown me more kindness and humanity than most humans I have known. She saved my life. She gave me a home when I had nothing, and she just risked her own safety to help save yours. So yes, I am with her, and I am not ashamed of it." The woman looked between them, her weathered face unreadable, then she sighed heavily. "The world has gone mad, humans and orcs together. What is next?" But there was something in her tone that was not quite condemnation. "Well, mad or not, you helped us. We honor our debts. Come, let us tend to the wounded and put out these fires, then we will talk." It was not acceptance exactly, but it was not rejection either. Roland felt Karga relax slightly beside him. Together they moved into the clearing and set to work. The next hours were a blur of activity. Karga proved her worth immediately, tending to the wounded with a skill that left even the skeptical humans impressed. She set broken bones and stitched cuts and mixed poultices for burns. Roland helped put out fires and salvage what could be saved from the ruins. They worked until the sun began to set, and the immediate crisis had passed. The older woman, whose name turned out to be Margaret, insisted they stay for a meal. The surviving families gathered around a fire in the center of the clearing, sharing what food they had and telling stories of the attack. Roland and Karga sat slightly apart from the main group, but they were not excluded. People brought them food. A few even thanked them directly. Margaret came to sit with them as full dark fell. She looked tired but resolute. "I meant what I said about honoring debts," she told them. "You saved lives today, my granddaughter's life among others. I will not forget that." "We did what anyone should do," Karga said quietly. "But not what everyone would do," Margaret countered. She looked at Karga directly. "I will not pretend I understand what you two have. It is strange and unnatural by everything I was taught, but I am old enough to know that the world is not as simple as we like to think. You have proven yourself decent and brave today. That matters." Karga met her eyes, surprised. "Thank you, that means more than you know." Margaret nodded, then turned to Roland. "You are a deserter, I think. The way you move, the way you fight, you were military." Roland tensed but did not deny it. I could not do it anymore, could not fight in a war I stopped believing in." "Many would call you a coward for that, many have," Roland said evenly. "Well," Margaret stood, her joints creaking, "I am not one of them. You have made your choice and you live with it. That takes its own kind of courage. But I would advise you to stay clear of patrols and keep your heads down. Not everyone will be as understanding as a grateful old woman." She left them then. Roland and Karga sat in silence for a while, absorbing what had happened. Finally, Karga spoke. "You told them about us. You did not have to do that." "Yes, I did," Roland said firmly. "I will not hide you. I will not hide what I feel. You are not my secret shame. You are my joy and my future. And anyone who cannot accept that is not worth knowing." She was quiet for a moment, then leaned her head on his shoulder. I have never had someone defend me like that, stand for me. It is strange, but good strange. He kissed the top of her head. You are worth defending, worth standing for. I will spend my life proving that to you if I have to. You are insufferable, she said, but he could hear the smile in her voice. They stayed the night at the trading post and left at first light. A few of the families gave them supplies, more than was really necessary. Margaret pressed a package of medical supplies into Karga's hands and would not accept any argument. As they walked back through the forest toward their home, Roland felt something settle in his chest. Hope, maybe, or possibility. You think it can work? Karga asked as they walked. Truly work, I mean. Not just us hiding away, but actually living in this world. I do not know, Roland admitted. But today helped. We proved that we can contribute something, that we are not just monsters hiding in the woods, but people trying to do good. Maybe if we do enough of that, more people will see us the way Margaret did. Or maybe we will draw attention we do not want and end up dead. Also possible, he agreed cheerfully. But I would rather die trying to live openly than waste away in hiding. She laughed despite herself. You are a terrible influence. You love me anyway. I do, she said, and the simple honesty of it made his heart soar. Summer came, and with it a period of relative peace. They tended their garden and hunted and gathered. Roland had become quite skilled at the frontier life, though he would never match Karga's natural ability. They were happy, truly happy, in a way Roland had never imagined possible, but the peace could not last forever. They heard about it from a traveling peddler who sometimes stopped at the trading post. Margaret sent word to them that the man had news of the war. Roland and Karga went to hear it, moving carefully and arriving after dark to avoid attention. The news was not good. The war was escalating. Both sides were mobilizing for a major offensive. The border regions where they lived were going to become a battlefield. Civilians were being urged to evacuate to safer areas. How long do we have? Roland asked. The peddler shrugged. Weeks, maybe less. The armies are moving faster than anyone expected. My advice, get out now while you still can. That night, Roland and Karga argued for the first time in months. She wanted to stay to defend their home. He wanted to keep her safe, even if it meant abandoning everything they had built. I will not run again, Karga said, her voice hard. I have run my whole life. From my clan, from humans, from judgment and hate. I am done running. This is our home, and I will defend it. And I will not watch you die for a patch of land, Roland shot back. I love you, Karga. More than I love this place. More than I love my pride or my stubbornness. If staying means losing you, then we leave. It is that simple. It is not simple, she insisted. If we leave, where do we go? We cannot go to human lands. We cannot go to orc lands. There is nowhere left for us. Then we find somewhere new, farther north maybe, beyond the territories either side claims. We will manage, we always do. She turned away from him, her shoulders tight with frustration. You do not understand. I am so tired of being nothing. No clan, no people, no place in the world. This home, this life with you, it is the first time I have felt like I belong somewhere. And now you want me to give that up too. Roland moved behind her and gently turned her to face him. You do belong somewhere, with me. That has nothing to do with this dwelling or this patch of forest. I am your home now and you are mine. And home is not a place, it is whoever you love enough to fight for. So let us fight for each other and let the rest go. Tears were streaming down her face now. I am afraid, she whispered, afraid of losing everything again. Afraid that without this place we will drift apart, that reality will set in and you will see me for what I truly am. And what is that? A monster, an outcast, something unlovable. He cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing away her tears. No, you are the woman I love. The bravest, strongest, most beautiful person I have ever known. And no amount of distance or hardship or reality is going to change that. Do you hear me? I love you, not this place, not the idea of you, exactly as you are, and I will keep loving you whether we are here or 1,000 miles away. She closed her eyes and leaned into his touch. You promise? I promise. On everything I am and everything I have. I promise. She opened her eyes and looked at him, really looked at him, searching for any hint of doubt. Whatever she found must have satisfied her because she nodded slowly. All right, we leave. But we do this properly. We take what we can, we leave the rest neat and clean. And someday, when the war is over, maybe we can come back. Maybe we can, he agreed, though they both knew it was unlikely. They spent the next days preparing to leave. It was harder than Roland expected, packing up the life they had built. Every item they chose to take or leave behind felt weighted with meaning. The cup he had carved for her, the blanket she had woven from wool she had traded for, the books they had read together by firelight. On their last night in the dwelling, they lay together under the firs and talked until dawn, about where they might go, about what kind of life they wanted to build, about children maybe, someday, if such a thing was even possible between their peoples, about growing old together. I want to marry you, Roland said suddenly into the darkness, properly, not just living together but bound together. I want everyone to know that you are mine and I am yours. Karga was silent for a moment. Humans do not marry orcs. It is not done. Then we will be the first. We can make our own ceremony, our own vows. It does not need anyone's approval but ours. He turned to face her in the dim light. Marry me, Karga, be my wife in truth. Let me be your husband. She looked at him with shining eyes. This is mad. You know this is mad. The best things usually are. So what do you say? She kissed him then, deep and fierce. When she pulled back she was smiling, tusks and all, not hiding anything. Yes, yes, I will marry you, Roland Norris, and damn the world for thinking it is wrong. They married themselves the next morning at dawn, speaking vows of their own making by the creek where they had first met. No witnesses except the forest and the rising sun. No rings except simple ones Roland carved from wood the night before. No approval except their own hearts. But it felt more real and true than any grand ceremony could have been. I vow to stand with you, Roland said. In plenty and in want, in peace and in war, in joy and in sorrow. I vow to see you truly, all that you are, and to never stop reminding you of your worth. I vow to be your home and your safe harbor for as long as I draw breath. Karga spoke her vows in her own language first, then repeated them in common speech. I vow to trust you with my heart, though trust does not come easily to me. I vow to fight beside you and for you against whatever comes. I vow to love you without shame or fear, to build a life with you wherever we may go. I vow to be yours in all ways for all time. They sealed the vows with a kiss as the sun broke over the horizon, painting the world gold, and Roland felt something shift in his soul, a settling into place. This was right. This was real. Everything else was just details. They left that afternoon, packs on their backs, heading north into territory neither of them knew well. It was frightening and uncertain, but they faced it together. For the first week they traveled hard, putting as much distance as possible between themselves and the coming armies. They slept under the stars and ate what they could hunt or gather. Gradually they settled into a new rhythm. They moved more slowly now, learning the land. Karga showed him how to read the forest, how to find water and shelter and good hunting grounds. Roland used his strategic mind to plan routes and identify safe campsites. They were a good team. One day they crested a ridge and looked down into a hidden valley, pristine and untouched. A river ran through it and the forest was thick and green. No signs of human or orc habitation, no signs of the war. What do you think? Roland asked. Karga studied the valley with a critical eye. Then slowly she smiled. I think it looks like home. They descended into the valley and began building again. It was hard work, harder than it had been before. They had to start from nothing, constructing a basic shelter and establishing a food supply. But they were not the same people who had met by a frozen creek. They were stronger now, more confident, and they had each other. As the weeks turned into months, they carved out a life in the valley. They built a proper dwelling better than the first. They planted a garden and established hunting routes. They learned every inch of their new territory and made it truly theirs. And slowly, carefully, they began to heal from the wounds the world had given them. One evening in early autumn, they sat outside their home, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Karga leaned against Roland's shoulder, his arm around her waist. You ever regret it? She asked quietly. Giving up your old life, your people, everything you knew? Roland considered the question seriously. Sometimes I miss my sisters. I hope they are safe and happy. And sometimes I wonder about the men I served with, whether any of them survived. But regret? No, never. How could I regret finding you, finding this? We have lost so much, though, both of us. Our families, our places in the world. Do you not mourn that? I mourn what was lost, he said. But I celebrate what was found. You once told me you felt like nothing, like you had no place in the world. Do you still feel that way? She was quiet for a moment, thinking. No, she said finally. I feel like I have a place now, here with you. It is not what I expected. Not what I was taught to want, but it is mine and I would not trade it. Neither would I, Roland said. He turned to look at her, meeting those amber eyes he had come to love so much. You are beautiful, he told her, not for the first time and not for the last. But this time, finally, she did not argue. She did not shake her head or deny it or turn away. She just smiled, full and true, and said, I know. You tell me often enough that I am starting to believe it. He laughed and pulled her close. Good, it is about time. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set and the stars began to emerge. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled. An owl called from the trees. The forest was alive around them, neither hostile nor welcoming, just existing as they existed within it. You think we will ever be accepted? Karga asked after a while. Do you think the world will ever change enough to allow for people like us? I do not know, Roland admitted. Maybe not in our lifetime, but we are proof it is possible, and maybe someday others will follow our example. Maybe someday a human and an orc falling in love will not be a scandal but just another story of two people finding each other. He kissed the top of her head. But even if that day never comes, we have each other, and that is enough. Enough, she agreed softly. Then, with a hint of mischief in her voice, you are awfully philosophical this evening. Should I be worried? Maybe. I was thinking about our future, about the life we are building, about... He hesitated, then decided to just say it. About the fact that you might be carrying our child. She went very still. What makes you think that? You have been tired lately, and you refused the smoked fish at dinner, which you usually love, and you have been sick in the mornings. I am not completely oblivious. She was silent for so long he started to worry he had overstepped. Then she turned to look at him, her expression vulnerable in a way he rarely saw. I was not sure. It is very early, and I did not know if it was even possible between our peoples. I did not want to say anything until I was certain. But you think you might be? Yes, she whispered. I think I might be. Are you? How do you feel about that? Roland felt a rush of emotion so strong it almost overwhelmed him. Joy and terror and wonder all mixed together. I feel like the luckiest man alive, and also completely terrified, but mostly lucky. She let out a breath she had been holding. I am terrified too. I do not know how to be a mother, and what if the child is rejected by both our peoples? What if we cannot protect them from the hate? Then we teach them to be strong, Roland said firmly. We teach them that they are not defined by what others think. We give them all the love and acceptance we did not always have, and we protect them with everything we are. He placed a hand gently on her stomach. This child, if there is a child, is proof that love can bridge any divide. That something beautiful can come from what the world calls impossible, and we will make sure they know that every single day. Tears were streaming down Karga's face again, but this time they were happy tears. You really mean that? With all my heart. She kissed him then, deep and sweet and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, she was smiling through her tears. We are going to need a bigger home, he laughed. We will build one together, just like we have built everything else. And they did. As autumn turned to winter and winter gave way to spring, they expanded their dwelling and prepared for the possibility of a child. Karga's pregnancy became more obvious, and with it came new challenges. She was sick often in the early months, and Roland did his best to care for her, bringing her water and gentle foods and holding her hair back when the nausea became too much. But she was strong, his wife, stronger than he had ever imagined. She continued to work even when she was tired, continued to hunt and gather and maintain their home. She made preparations with a practical efficiency that amazed him, gathering supplies and making tiny clothes and preparing a space for the baby. As her belly swelled, Roland found himself overwhelmed with protectiveness. He was terrified something would go wrong, that they would lose this precious thing they had created. Karga endured his hovering with patience and occasional exasperation. I am not made of glass, she told him one day when he tried to stop her from climbing to reach dried herbs. I am an orc. We are built tough. You are carrying our child, he countered. That makes you the most valuable thing in this world, and I will fuss over you as much as I want. She rolled her eyes, but he could see she was pleased. Impossible man. You're impossible man, he corrected. Yes, she agreed softly. Mine. The baby came in the early days of summer during a thunderstorm that shook their dwelling. Roland had never been so frightened in his life. Karga labored for hours while he did his best to help, following the instructions she gasped out between contractions. She was in so much pain and he felt utterly helpless. But she was strong, so incredibly strong. And when the baby finally came, slipping into the world with a thin wail, Roland felt his heart crack open in a way it never had before. A daughter. They had a daughter, tiny and perfect, with green-tinted skin somewhere between Karga's deep green and his own pale tan. Delicate features that were a blend of both of them. No tusks yet, but small pointed ears. Dark hair already growing in thick. She was the most beautiful thing Roland had ever seen next to her mother. Karga held their daughter against her chest, both of them exhausted, and wept openly. She is perfect, she breathed. Roland, look at her. She is perfect. Like her mother, he said, his own voice thick with emotion. He reached out a careful finger and the baby grasped it with surprising strength. Her eyes, when they opened, were a startling blue-green, like the ocean he had never seen but had heard described. They named her Arya, because Karga said it meant song in the old orc tongue, and because she had come into the world during a storm, her cries mixing with the thunder. Arya Norris, daughter of two worlds belonging to neither and both. The first months were exhausting. Arya was a hungry baby, demanding and loud. She cried often and slept rarely. Roland and Karga took turns caring for her, stumbling through the days in a haze of sleep deprivation and wonder. Every small milestone felt monumental. Her first smile, the first time she laughed, the way she tracked their movements with those strange, beautiful eyes, As she grew, it became clear that she was indeed a blend of both her parents. Her skin tone was between theirs. Her build was stocky and strong like an orc, but her features were more delicate. Small tusks did eventually emerge, barely visible but there. She was quick to learn and curious about everything, getting into mischief the moment she could crawl. Roland and Karga fell even more deeply in love through the process of raising her. They learned to work as a team, supporting each other through the hard nights and celebrating together the good moments. They had their disagreements, of course. Parenting brought new challenges, and sometimes they clashed on how to handle things. But they always talked it through, always found compromises, always faced it together. When Arya was about 6 months old, Roland was hunting near the edge of their valley when he encountered another person for the first time in months. A human trapper, grizzled and weathered, checking his lines. The man froze when he saw Roland, hand going to his knife. "Easy," Roland said, raising his hands. "I mean no harm, just hunting for my family." The trapper relaxed slightly but remained wary. "Did not know anyone lived in this valley. We keep to ourselves. We value our privacy." "Fair enough." The man studied Roland with sharp eyes. "You are a long way from civilization. What brings you out here?" "Looking for peace," Roland said simply. "The world beyond is too full of war and hate. We wanted something better." "We?" The trapper picked up on the word immediately. Roland hesitated, then decided there was no point in lying. "My wife and daughter, we are just trying to live quietly." "Wife and daughter," the man repeated. Something in his tone made Roland tense. "And where is your wife from?" "That is none of your concern," the trapper grunted. "Defensive, which tells me plenty. Word of advice, friend. There are those who would pay good coin for information about unusual families living in remote places, especially families that might include non-humans. I am not one of those people. I mind my business, but others might not be so kind." Roland felt cold dread settle in his stomach. "Are you threatening us?" "No, warning you, there is a difference. My advice: be more careful, trust no one, and maybe consider moving even farther out. The world has a way of finding secrets, no matter how well hidden." The trapper tipped his hat and moved on, disappearing into the forest. Roland stood there for a long moment, his mind racing. Then he abandoned his hunt and hurried back to their home. When he told Karga about the encounter, she listened with a serious expression. Then she nodded slowly. "He is right. We have become complacent, comfortable. We need to be more vigilant." "Or we need to move again," Roland said, though the thought pained him. They had built so much here. "No," Karga's voice was firm. "No more running. This is Arya's home. She deserves to grow up somewhere stable, somewhere she belongs. We stay and we are careful, and if trouble comes, we face it." Roland wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. They could not spend their whole lives fleeing. At some point they had to stand their ground, so they stayed, but they were more cautious now. They took turns keeping watch. They established better hiding places and escape routes. They prepared for the possibility that they might have to defend what they had built. Months passed without incident. Arya grew into a toddler, walking and then running everywhere on sturdy legs. She was fearless and joyful, laughing at everything, loving the forest and the animals and her parents with equal enthusiasm. She learned to speak in a mixture of common tongue and orc language, switching between them without thought. Roland taught her songs and Karga taught her the names of plants. Together they taught her that she was loved, that she was special, that she belonged. One day, when Arya was nearly 2 years old, Margaret from the trading post appeared at the edge of their valley. Roland spotted her first and went down to meet her, tense and ready for trouble. But the old woman held up her hands in peace. "I come with news, not threat," she said, "and perhaps an offer." Roland led her back to their home warily. Karga emerged with Arya on her hip, her expression guarded. Margaret's eyes went wide when she saw the child. So the rumors were true, she breathed. A human and an orc had a child together. I did not quite believe it until now. If you have come to cause trouble, Karga said coldly, you will regret it. Peace, girl. I meant what I said. I owe you a debt and I pay my debts. I came to warn you and to make you a proposition. They invited her inside, though Roland kept his knife close. Margaret accepted water and studied their home with interest. Then she turned to business. The war is over, she said bluntly. Has been for nearly a year now. The human forces and the orc clans signed a treaty. The borders are redrawn and there is an uneasy peace, but the world is still dangerous for people like you. There are many on both sides who do not accept the peace, who would see mixing of peoples as an abomination. Roland and Karga exchanged glances. The war was over, it should have been good news, but Margaret's expression said otherwise. What is the proposition? Roland asked. The trading post is growing, becoming a real settlement. We need people with skills. You, she nodded to Roland, are good in a fight and know how to work the land. You, she nodded to Karga, are the best healer I have seen in my 50 years. Come join us. Bring your daughter. We will accept you, not everyone perhaps, but enough. And your child would grow up around other children instead of isolated in the wilderness. It was tempting, so tempting, but Roland shook his head. We would be putting your community at risk if the wrong people found out about us. Let us worry about that, Margaret said firmly. We have already decided. The council voted. Those who helped us when we needed it have a place among us, no matter what form they take. That includes you too, so what do you say? Karga looked at Roland, then at Arya, who was playing with a carved toy on the floor, oblivious to the weight of the conversation. Could she really have that? Friends, community, a normal life. As normal as possible under the circumstances, Margaret said. I will not lie to you. It will be hard. There will be stares and comments and people who refuse to accept you, but there will also be allies, people who see you for what you truly are, good folks trying to make a life. And is that not better than hiding forever? Roland thought about the trapper's warning, about the isolation Arya would face growing up with no one but her parents, about the life he and Karga deserved after everything they had survived, and he made a decision. We will think about it, he said carefully. This is not something to decide lightly, but we are grateful for the offer. Truly, Margaret nodded. Think quickly. The offer stands for 1 month. After that, things may change and I cannot guarantee we can protect you. She stood to leave, then paused. That child of yours, she is beautiful, both of you should be proud. After she left, Roland and Karga sat in silence for a long time, watching Arya play. Finally, Karga spoke. I want to go, she said quietly. I want Arya to have what we did not, a place to belong, people who know her name, a chance at something more than just survival. It could be dangerous, Roland said. Everything is dangerous, but this could be worth it. She turned to him, her amber eyes intense. You have told me so many times that I am not a monster, that we deserve to live openly. I am ready to believe that now. But only if you are ready to stand with me. Roland took her hand. Always. From the first moment I saw you until my last breath. Always. So they made their choice. They packed up what they could carry, secured their dwelling for possible return, and made the journey to the trading post. It took 2 days of careful travel with a toddler. When they finally emerged from the forest and looked down at the settlement, Roland felt his heart pound with fear and hope in equal measure. The reality of integration was harder than Margaret had made it sound. There were people who welcomed them, who valued Karga's healing skills and Roland's labor. But there were also those who would not speak to them, who made signs against evil when Arya toddled past, who muttered about abominations and unnatural things. It hurt every single time. Roland saw Karga close herself off again, making herself smaller, hiding her smiles. He saw Arya start to notice that she was different, that other children were kept away from her by nervous parents. It came to a head one day in the market. Roland was trading some goods when he heard Arya cry out. He spun around to see her on the ground, a larger human boy standing over her. Other children had formed a circle, watching. "Monster baby," the boy was chanting. "Green skin, orc blood, monster baby." Roland moved without thinking, scooping Arya into his arms and turning to face the boy. He wanted to rage, wanted to shake the child and demand to know where he had learned such hate, but he controlled himself. "Barely. She is a child," he said through gritted teeth. "Just a child, like you." "She is a monster," the boy repeated stubbornly. "My pa says so. Says you and that orc woman are sinners and your baby is cursed." Before Roland could respond, Karga appeared at his side. She had heard the commotion. Her face was calm, but her hands were clenched into fists. She looked at the boy, then at the gathered crowd of adults who had come to watch. "You call my daughter a monster," she said, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent market. "You call her cursed, but you do not know her. You do not know that she laughs at butterflies and cries when flowers wilt. You do not know that she shares her food with birds and sings to the moon. You do not know her at all. You just see her skin and hear her blood and judge her for things she cannot change and did not choose." She stepped forward and the boy actually shrank back despite his earlier bravado. "I am an orc. My husband is human. Our daughter is both and neither. She is new. She is hope. She is proof that your hate does not have to win. And if you cannot see that, if you insist on teaching your children to fear and despise what they do not understand, then you are the monsters, not us." The silence that followed was absolute. Roland saw shame on some faces, anger on others, but he also saw a few people nodding. Margaret pushed through the crowd and placed herself firmly beside them. "She is right," the old woman said loudly. "We are better than this. We survived a war. We built a community in the ruins. And now we will tear it apart over a child, over fear of something different. I will not stand for it. Anyone who has a problem with this family has a problem with me, and I suggest you think carefully before making that choice." It was a turning point, not a complete victory. There were still those who would never accept them. But enough people stood with Margaret that day that the open hostility faded to mere cold disapproval. It was not perfect, but it was progress. Over the following months, things slowly improved. Arya made her first friend, a human girl whose mother was one of Karga's patients. The friendship was tentative at first, but it grew. Other children, given the chance to actually interact with Arya rather than just fear her, discovered she was just another child. Fun to play with, quick to laugh, generous with her toys. Karga's skills as a healer became invaluable to the community. She saved lives and eased suffering and proved her worth time and time again. People who had been suspicious learned to trust her. Roland worked hard at whatever tasks needed doing, earning respect through action rather than words. Slowly, painfully, they carved out a place for themselves. By the time Arya was 4, she was a fixture in the settlement. Not universally loved, but accepted. She had friends and playmates. She learned alongside other children. She grew up knowing that she was different but not less, that her parents' love had bridged 2 worlds and created something new. Roland and Karga grew too. The fear and isolation that had marked their early years together faded. They became pillars of the community, relied upon and respected. Their love, which had begun in desperation and grown in isolation, flourished in the light of day. They were not just surviving anymore. They were living. One evening, they stood together watching Arya play with a group of other children, all of them running and laughing without regard for species or origin. Karga leaned against Roland's shoulder and he wrapped an arm around her waist. "Do you remember," she said quietly, "when I told you no one means it when they call an orc beautiful? I remember. I was wrong. You meant it. You have meant it every day since, and slowly through your eyes I learned to see myself differently. To believe that maybe I was worth loving after all." Roland turned to face her fully, cupping her face in his hands. "You are worth loving. You are worth everything, and I will spend the rest of my life grateful that you let me prove it to you." She smiled, full and unguarded, tusks on display. "I love you, Roland Norris, my impossible, stubborn, wonderful human. I love you too, Karga Norris, my fierce, brilliant, beautiful wife." They kissed as the sun set. Two people who should never have met, should never have loved, should never have built a life together. But they had. Against all odds and all expectations. They had chosen each other and kept choosing each other every single day. And in doing so, they had changed not just their own lives but the world around them. Because love, real love, the kind that sees past surface and species to the soul beneath, that is the most powerful force in any world. It builds bridges where there were walls. It finds hope in despair. It creates possibility where there was only fear. And as Arya called to them to come join the game, her voice high and happy and free, they knew that they had given her the greatest gift possible. Not just life, but a life worth living. A future where she could be exactly who she was without shame or fear. Where she could love without limits and be loved in return. They had started with nothing but each other. Two outcasts from peoples at war taking a chance on impossible love, and they had built everything. A home, a family, a community, a future. "Come on," Arya called, waving to them. "You are too slow." Roland and Karga laughed and ran to join her, leaving behind the shadows of the past and stepping fully into the light of what they had created together. The future was uncertain, as it always was. There would be more challenges, more prejudice to overcome, more battles to fight. But they would face them together as they had faced everything else. As they always would, because some love stories end before they can truly begin, crushed under the weight of a world that refuses to accept them. But others, the rare and precious ones, survive and thrive. They become legends. Proof that change is possible, that hate can be overcome, that the heart knows no boundaries except the ones we choose to impose. This was one of those stories. A human soldier and an orc healer who found each other in the wilderness and chose to love despite every reason not to. Who built a life and raised a daughter and changed a community. Who proved that beauty comes in many forms and love recognizes no borders. Who were brave enough to hope when hope seemed foolish and strong enough to endure when endurance seemed impossible. Who were, simply and profoundly, beautiful together, and in the years that followed their story spread. Quietly at first, then louder. Other mixed couples found courage in their example. Other communities began, tentatively, to open their doors. The world changed slowly, painfully slowly, but it changed. Because they had dared to love. Because they had refused to hide. Because they had stood firm and said, "This is who we are and we will not apologize for it." Arya grew into a strong, confident young woman who knew her own worth and never doubted her parents' love. She became a bridge herself, moving easily between human and orc worlds, accepted in both because she carried the best of each. She would go on to do great things, to help heal the wounds of the war, to build new connections between peoples. But that is her story, for another time. This story ends where it began, with truth spoken and finally believed. with Roland looking at Karga across the fire of their shared life and saying once more, "You are beautiful." And with Karga smiling back at him, no longer shaking her head, no longer denying, but simply saying, "I know, and so are you," because in the end, that is what love does. It teaches us to see ourselves through the eyes of someone who truly sees us. It transforms us from the monsters we fear we are into the beautiful souls we were always meant to be. And that transformation, that choice to believe in love even when the world says it is impossible, that is the most beautiful thing of all. Their story became legend in the settlement and beyond. The human and the orc who loved against all odds, who built a family and a home and a future where none should have existed, who proved that beauty and worth are not determined by species or origin, but by the content of one's character and the courage to love without limits. And on quiet evenings, when the work was done and Arya was grown and building her own life, Roland and Karga would sit together watching the stars emerge. They would hold hands and share comfortable silence. They would remember the frightened, wounded soldier and the lonely, exiled healer who had taken a chance on each other. And they would be grateful, so profoundly grateful for every moment that had led them here. "No regrets?" Karga would sometimes ask. "Not a single one," Roland would always answer. "You," and Karga would smile that smile he loved so much and say, "Only that we did not find each other sooner." They had built something impossible, something beautiful, something that would endure long after they were gone, in the hearts of their daughter and the community they had helped shape and the world they had helped change, one day and one choice at a time. And that, in the end, was enough. More than enough. It was everything.